I think that this is the greatest risk of AI to humanity. And it's something that most people aren't even thinking about. They're not aware of. Nobody's talking about. Everybody's talking about AI through the lens of AI is going to replace all these jobs. It's going to put all these people out of work. Or they're talking about AI or AGI through the lens of our computer overlords. What happens when AI becomes sentient and then it takes over the world and kills all humans? Those are like the two tracks people think about when it comes to AI. Either it's going to put you out of work or it's going to enslave all of humanity. There's a third thing that's happening, though, and it's happening rapidly. It's happening right now, and it's if you are the type of person who's been using AI consistently in your business and your life, which you should be because it's a very powerful tool, you need to be aware of this. And I've been thinking about this a lot. I tweeted about this the other day. I said, AI has made me a more effective machine, but a less effective human. What I mean by that is that AI has made it incredibly easy for me to 100x my productivity, to pump out content ideas, to pump out SOPs, to pump out pretty much anything. It has made my output 1000x what it was prior. But the problem is that the things that make humans valuable and unique and special, relevant relative to an AI, is our ability to think creatively, to connect ideas, and to have this inspiration. And when the answers are handed to you on a platter, you don't do any of that hard thinking or the hard creative work that would lead to those eureka moments. And so what I found is that the quality of my thinking was decreasing. The quality of my creative outputs was decreasing despite the quantity of my outputs 1000xing. And the fear here is that AI will slowly make us stupider as humans, less capable, less creative, less competent. And that is the big fear that I have for myself, because as I think about one of my objectives for life, which is to go and become the greatest version of myself possible, the greatest version of myself as I imagine him in 40, 50, 60 years from now is not the guy who's produced the most. It's the guy that's done the most with what he's had. And that's a matter of the innate human sparks that only I can have. And it's not a function of me prompting the AI to get the computer to tell me a thing. It's about having my own ideas. And I saw this, actually, it's so funny because history repeats itself, or history never repeats itself, but it always rhymes, right? And I've talked about before how I'm a very avid competitive chess player. And chess actually was very ahead of the curve with AI. Back in the early 2000s, Gary Kasparov played Deep Blue, the IBM computer, right? And that was when the computer beat man for the first time in chess. And it was kind of like this pivotal moment where from that point forward, humans really don't stand a chance against computers anymore. The humans just get destroyed. Well, these computers, what we call them in chess is engines. Well, these engines got really powerful over the last 15 years, and they use AI neural nets to increase their effectiveness. And as a consequence, humans have been using this tool to deepen their own understanding of the game of chess. And so there's been this big leap forward in the quality of chess being played at the highest levels. Well, here's something that I observed is when I would use engines to analyze my games, I did not get better. I did not improve. And the reason for that is when I give the engine a complex problem to solve, it would give me the answer, and I would look at it and go, yeah, of course that's the answer. But more important than knowing the right answer is knowing why it's the right answer. Let me repeat that. More important than knowing the right answer is knowing why it's the right answer. This is why it's so important in school to show your work. I didn't understand this as a kid, right? It just seemed like an unnecessary step. But it was trying to see, do you understand the underlying fundamentals of the problem? And were you using the right thought process to solve it, regardless of whether or not you got the right answer? When I was a kid, I thought all that mattered was having the right answer. It's not. It's knowing why it's the right answer. It's knowing how to get to the right answer, not just having the right answer. And the engines in chess give you the right answer without giving you or necessitating insight, without necessitating true comprehension. And so now you've memorized the answer, but you don't comprehend the answer. And it was only when I stopped using engines, I started looking at these games and analyzing them myself, which would take a lot longer, and I wouldn't always come up with the right answer that the engine would confirm. But it was in doing that that I started to build a deeper comprehension around the problem. Now, extrapolate this over to other areas of your life that you might be using AI for right now. You put in the question, you get the answer, and you have that dopamine burst of, oh, I have the answer now, and you think you're smarter for it, but you are not. You are losing something in the process, which is the work required to gain the insight. And we always say that the work works on you more than you work on it. You are the product of the work you do. And when you're not doing the work and you're relying on this external genie in a bottle to tell you the answer, then you're losing something. There's a really cool story about the London taxi cab drivers back in, it must have been like the 2000s, when GPS was becoming just first came on the scene, right? So London is a very complicated city with all sorts of crazy windy roads. It's a navigational nightmare. But London cabbies possess this incredible memory for the streets. So they pick you up here, you need to go over there. They knew exactly the fastest route to get there. They could navigate the labyrinth, the maze that is London. Well, along comes GPS, along comes what was it, TomTom and like Garmin and all these other devices. You remember, like GPS didn't start on the phone, right? Like there was these other applications. So now the barrier to entry to become a London taxi cab driver was much easier. You didn't have to have all the roads memorized. You now had GPS to help you. Well, pretty soon, all the taxi cab drivers were relying on GPS, because why use your memory when you can just punch in the number? It's way easier, right? Well, within a very short period of time of like just a couple of years, this prodigious memory that these taxi cab drivers had for the streets of London completely disappeared. They were just as effective in getting their people from point A to point B, but they themselves were now less competent, less capable as a human being. They lost something. And here's what's scary about AI as a tool for all areas of our life is it's not just GPS. You're not just losing your navigational sense. You're losing your sense around all of these creative tasks that you used to have to exert cognitive power towards. And in the case of the taxi cab drivers, the sad thing is, in all of those cases, it wasn't as though the taxi cab driver replaced their memory. They started using the GPS and now use that newly found bandwidth for some new endeavor. And so the fear I have with AI for myself, and maybe not for you, but for me, is as I'm using AI more and it's freeing up my cognitive bandwidth, am I redeploying that elsewhere? Answer in a lot of cases is no. Right. And as that happens, then it's just a slippery slope with time that you become a less capable, less effective human being. And so I think AI, the great risk that it has for people is that it's going to make us dumber, less competent, less capable of surviving, less in alignment with that greatest self. And if your goal is to, be better tomorrow than you are today, there's not a lot of ways where I can see that AI is currently helping me do that. And so I share all that with you because I think it's important, one, to be aware of the problem, and then to recognize in what ways am I using AI and in what ways is AI using me and weakening me. And so for creative activities, I'm finding I don't want to use AI for those creative things because creativity is such an innately human capacity. There's a aspect of like the miraculous to it. No other animal really has that. And I'm not saying that with time AI isn't going to be creative and more creative than a human. All I know is that I don't want to lose that core feature of what it means to be human. I don't want to lose that to the machine. So I share all that with you. I don't know what to do about it. Be prepared. You're going to get dumber. And you're going to need to work extra hard to actively combat that. So take that doomsday prognosis and keep doing you. I'll see you guys in the next episode.
That was crazy. That was a crazy episode. That was golden. I didn't even think about the redeployment thing.
Yeah.
Right? Because naturally what happens is your mind just goes, or you just go into a state of like relaxation almost. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like your brain relieves the tension of having to do this heavy hard thing and then says, oh, what's this other heavy hard thing I could go do now? Yeah. Your brain's just like, cool. I don't have to work as hard to get the answer. Now I'm not going to work as hard. Yeah. And so just across the board stops working as hard. Yeah. And this is funny actually, because you can draw the same parallel to founders where they start to buy back their time. Yeah. They hire an admin underneath of them. They hire the marketing guy. They hire this other person, but then they don't backfill their own calendar. The idea is that you bring in people that you can pay to do the tasks that are lower wage than your current hourly wage, right? So if you're as a founder, you're making $150 an hour, then any task that you could outsource to somebody else for less than $150 an hour, you should outsource. Yeah. But as founders do this, the mistake that they make is they get all their calendar back and they're like, huzzah, I have all this calendar time now. And they make exactly as much as they did before. Their margins get less because now they have other mouths to feed in the equation, but the business doesn't necessarily grow. And they're like, well, I did all this stuff. I hired out all these things, but why am I not growing? It's like, because your default is to hand off these hard things and to not put new hard things on your plate. And that's why you're not growing. The goal, the way that you scale is you hand off all these hard things to people that can do them for less. And then you take on the higher hard things that you can't yet afford people to do. And you do more and more and more and more of those things. And then the business grows and then your hourly wage increases. And now you can afford to bring in the person for $150 an hour to do this task, right? But at each level of bringing in people and outsourcing this activity, you now have to look at your own calendar and say, well, how do I backfill this with more valuable activities? And if you don't do that, then you stagnate in your growth. And so it's like the same parallel with the AIs and the tools where it's like you outsource your thinking to it. If you're not redeploying that cognitive bandwidth towards other hard mental exercises, then you, as a whole, the quality and difficulty of your cognitive output just declines with time. And like it's a muscle, right? And so you can see like if when you discovered levers, instead of going to the gym and doing, your bicep curls, you're like, I can actually move that same weight with less effort with a lever. So now I'm just going to move it with a lever. So you're moving the same weight, you're doing the same reps, but you're getting less. And you can see how stupid that is in the context of a gym where you're like, well, the reason I go to the gym is to get stronger. Why would I do that? It's like, yeah, no shit. Same problem with AI. Yeah. AI is the lever that allows you to do more mental cognitive heavy lifting. Yeah. But if you don't then go do the heavy mental cognitive lifting outside of that lever, your output, your capacity decreases. And so it's like, that is the big fear that I have with AI, is that everybody is now just in the gym using a lever and they're like, look, I'm capable of moving just as much weight. And it's like, yeah, but you're scrawny, you're weak, you're not getting stronger. Yeah. Now there are definitely aspects. So it's like, as a construction worker, I don't want to go lift 1,000 pounds and put it on top of that wall. Yeah. I want to have a crane for that. Levers and tools are powerful for that stuff, which is why you then go to the gym to work these things. And there's, in a lot of cases, people are like, well, there's no benefit to going to the gym. Like, what? One of the crazy criticisms that I hear of people of like, oh, why you don't need to be 10% body fat. Like, what's the value of being able to bench press 300 pounds? Yeah. Right? Like, there's no functional value to that. It's like, you're right. There's not, because there are like countless more effective high leverage ways to move the weight rather than me just bench pressing it on top of the wall. Right? That's not why you do it. You do it so you don't lose your physical capacity to do it. Yeah. It's so that you can do the thing. And it's the same with the mental work. That if you're not careful, AI is going to make it so that you can't even think. Yeah. And I'm already seeing it with kids that are like going through school and they're relying on AI to like do the thinking for them. It's like, I see it with myself where I'm like, oh, I'm not as sharp because I'm not spending as much time thinking through the problem. I'm defaulting to getting to getting a head start on the problem, and I just worry. I just worry because I know what the end consequence of all that is just to become like a diluted version of yourself.
Yeah.
Which is like the antithesis of my life goal, which is to become the greatest version of myself as possible.
Which is interesting because then it sounds like before AI, it was much easier to become the greatest version of yourself because you're getting in constant reps. But that's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, I mean that's a really interesting idea. You think about a lot, which is like, it seems like artists and creators of the past, inventors of the past, were far more creative.
Yeah.
You look at like the Rembrandts, the Da Vincis, the Michelangelos, you see these things that they created and you're like, how did they do that? That's absolutely wild. It's because they didn't have the tools, the comforts of modern life, and they had more time effectively spent on the hard thing of doing that activity. Yeah. Now it'd be like, I played with AI a lot last week, and I was able to create all these really cool thumbnails, really cool images in just like split second. Yeah. I can create just as good art with my verbal prompts to ChatGPT as like the best artist right now. Yeah. Like functionally, it's like, hey, draw me a cartoon. Cool, I can draw you the same cartoon. But I don't have the ability personally to go draw that thing. Yeah. And so like that person has a mastery, a skill that I don't have. But then you imagine like, okay, fast forward another 50 years, what's the point in learning that skill of how to draw anymore? Yeah. Because like that guy, to the end consumer, they're not necessarily caring. Yeah. Did this guy create it or did AI create it? And more the world will move towards like, they don't care if it's AI generated because they're not going to be able to know the difference. Yeah. And so this person is going to, the time and hours that went into mastering this craft, they're not going to spend it there. They're going to spend it on learning how to prompt a machine to get the thing. Yeah. But then you look, it's like, okay, which one is more inherently like difficult? Who is more competent and creative and capable? Well, that guy was. Yeah. Right? But that's because we could put out the same amount. That guy was still more capable. Like Leonardo da Vinci is like way more capable than I am. Yeah. At so many different things. His understanding of science, of biology, of art, of drawing, of light, all of it was so much deeper, despite the fact that I can produce just as good of work as he can now. Because my tools are better, not because I'm better.
Yeah. And this is kind of like going farther than that. But then, at what point then do humans lose the capability to innovate, right? Not saying that AI can innovate for us, but it almost seems like then there's going to be a stunt in growth for even like spacecraft, because humans won't have the imagination or the innovation to move further. Yes, you could use AI to figure it out, but then it seems like everything will just be AI. Like, okay, now I'm just getting.
Yeah, it gets scary. You get to the point where it's like when does innovation or creativity in a human die? It's when it becomes unnecessary. Right? Because at a certain point, the machines, AI, the tools that we have available to us will be just as good at innovating and creating things as the best human creator. Because a human can only spend 100 years on this planet perfecting this activity. The machines, they're so far ahead. Yeah. So the only reason to do that is because you want to do it. Yeah. And not because there's like this downstream economics benefit or even benefit to humanity. Because like a human right now working in a lab all by himself is not going to find the cure to cancer faster than the machines. Yeah. Right. So the only reason to do it is because you're following your curiosity, and it's because you're genuinely interested in. But this is why I worry about it. Like holistically, AI making humanity dumber. Like I'm not worried about AI enslaving us. I'm worried about it just dumbifying us to the point where it's like humans don't see the point in going and learning this thing because they're like, I can get the answer, I can get the result so much quicker from this thing, which is why you see so many really cool artisanal work is interesting inherently. Yeah. I wrote about this many years ago, is that the value of a handcrafted wood, like the master craftsman who spent his lifetime learning how to carve this beautiful wooden ornamentation, right? The value isn't in the ornamentation of the thing itself, because that can be recreated at any point now by a machine, by technology. The value is in knowing the amount of time that craftsman exchanged their life for the thing. Time they can't get back. They put their hours into this. They might have put 10,000 hours into creating this that they can't get back. And that's the inherent value of that thing now. And that's why art collection is still valuable, right? Like, I want that Rembrandt because that is something Rembrandt put his life into. This is almost the physical manifestation of Rembrandt's 1,000 hours. I own his 1,000 hours. I have proof of it right here. And that's what makes it valuable. It's a really interesting idea where like time is money, time is value. Yeah. But it's like that's for me part of why art collection is so intriguing, is because you actually own the physical representation of that artist's life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yep. And the crazier the art piece, like the more investment, the more time that went into it. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one that thinks about it that way, but I've been thinking about these concepts a lot recently, just because, you know, you think about what's the goal of a human. Is the goal to be as effective as possible, like to get as much done? Then yeah, you use the tools. But the most fulfillment that I've found in my personal life has come as the result of doing hard things that only I can do. And that weren't necessarily high value to the rest of the world, but that had a high amount of intrinsic value to me, because as a consequence of doing that work, I grew, I improved, I increased, and I moved closer to that hypothetical greatest version of myself. And I have not seen that yet with AI. I have not yet used AI in a way that has made me go, oh, that has moved me forward. It's only moved me back. So that's my great fear.